Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. Welcome to all of you who are listening at home and those who are in the audience today. We have a full agenda for the committee of the whole meeting, and some items will have to go into closed session most likely, and that will be at the end of our agenda. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, December 6, 2022. The time is 9 a.m. We have a full council present. No one is absent. So we'll turn this portion of the committee of the whole meeting over to our city administrator for the agenda, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is Northeast Technical Services regarding the engagement letter between NTS and the city for implementation of the soil management plan for the Public Safety Center project.
Okay. Jenny Holmes is not here, is she? So we'll bring forward the other partner of many in NTS, Rick Crum. Rick, good morning. Would you turn on the light to green? And welcome to the council meeting.
I'm open for questions.
Okay.
Or would you like me to summarize?
Yeah, that'd be great.
The proposal? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So it was a unique investigation in that there wasn't full access to all the property at the time they did the initial investigation. They did the investigation, they found a few areas of contamination and then highlighted the data gaps, or that is those areas which were not yet investigated. So the end game here is for the city to obtain, you have a no association determination from the agency, but now the next assurance that you need is a no action or no further action. Essentially what that does is it approves the development that you are pursuing as it relates to whatever remaining contamination is in place. And I think in your packet, I saw that there is that, by the way, to do that, we submitted a response action plan. And that plan is how it is we're going to obtain all the data and information to obtain that assurance. I saw in the packet there is the MPCA approval of that response action plan. And they always make a big long list, I think 1 through 13 items of some of the data gaps that have to be filled essentially right prior, as soon as you have access, and then during construction. So some of this happens before construction, some of it happens during construction. Because one of the basic ideas there is during construction, when you're grading and doing earthwork, sometimes you make discoveries and you have to react to those discoveries.
Okay, in order to get this accomplished, this action has to be taken with respect to those 13 items in order to gain approval for the project to move forward. Is that correct?
Yes, that's essentially right. I always say it, in order to obtain that assurance from the MPCA, and that is the assurance that essentially seals the liability up so that the city won't be liable in the future for any of that.
So let's see a Godfather approach. Just when you thought you're out, they try to pull you back in. So, and this would be the assurance that they won't do that.
Right.
Right.
Speaking from experience. Yeah.
Speaking from experience, yes. Thank you. The council? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I do have a question on the 13 items.
Mm-hmm.
Are we able to obtain a cost as we're going through that process? As you had stated, some have to be done prior and then some are during. Is there a way to obtain a cost on that? And then do we have funding options? Is that part of our funding package, or are there grant opportunities for that mitigation?
So I think what Jenny submitted to the city, so there's two parts, that work that needs to be done up front. Some of that can be estimated. I think there's some drilling that needs to be done yet. So we could collect some of that cost estimates from drilling outfits and others, and some of the lab. And then some of it is indeterminate. That is because you're going to make discoveries as you go. So it's hard to estimate the things that you don't know. And I think that's the basis for the time and materials part going forward. The one thing we oftentimes do in those cases, though, is take a guess and put a not to exceed without additional authorization, so that at least the city has some sort of control and can if it does go beyond that, you can authorize in steps.
Okay, and then I think just to follow up on that, if I might, do we have like set aside funds or dedicated funds for this type of scenario? And then in reference to what Mr. Crum is saying, do we just hold that back or say up to this amount?
Correct, yes. This was budgeted as part of the project. We knew there was going to be environmental concerns over there.
Yep.
And when we did this study, it was actually better than we thought. We thought there'd be a lot worse. So thankfully, knock on wood, it was better than I thought. So we should stay well within the budget that we
Okay.
planned for this portion.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
On your question for funding, with John Sullivan gone, I think part of the idea of having an approved RAP early in the process is to allow you to look at opportunities for funding. The most obvious one is deed. So with an approved RAP, the city is eligible for deed funding for the Brownfield grant. That application is due, I think, in May of this spring. Or that'd be the most competitive way to do it. You can apply for that same fund retroactively in November if the work was completed. Those tend to be less competitive, though, when you're going after it.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Thank you, Mr. Crum. Okay, any other questions, comments before we move to take action to be sent to the City Council for final approval at the council meeting? Anyone else? Okay, looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Bearable?
yes, I will make a motion that we entertain the NTS firm to complete this project on the environmental areas that they have presented to us in the packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bearable moves to approve the engagement letter between NTS and the city regarding soil management plan for the Public Safety Center. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And when you just mentioned the cost of it, that if it exceeds a certain amount, will that be included in that? So the council would be aware of that?
Yeah, I think we could give that to Britt tomorrow, probably.
Okay, does that need to be included in the motion, or would that?
Oh, their contract's at hourly rate, so we only pay for the work they do.
But that language would be in there, so if it exceeds a certain amount.
We can add that language, is what Rick is saying, if that's what you would like.
If you could, thank you.
So in the motion, that
That's
you
fine
made,
with
would
me,
you add
Mayor.
that in your motion? Okay. and
I'll add that in my motion.
That's amended to your motion by the motioner, and the second also amendment is also accepted. Okay, motion is approved and accepted as the amendment as requested by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Item number 2 is Matt Reed, Short Elliott, and Hendrickson regarding the quote for the citywide GIS system.
Matt Reed, our engineer of record from SCH. Good morning.
Morning. Okay, where do I start with this one? So, for probably the last, I don't know, it's been a few years anyway. We've been discussing the public works staff, Jim Rosfit, now Britt, myself, have been discussing the need to update and modernize the city's records when it comes to your utilities, sanitary sewer and storm sewer specifically. And the GIS systems are what everybody seems to be using. A lot of cities use them. Some have very extensive GIS systems, some have less extensive, but they're if you're not familiar with them, it's all computerized. It's all, you can access it through your account from online, from iPads, computers, phones, whatever. So it's very convenient for the staff, and it's very easy to update. It's very easy to modify in the field right there when they're doing work on their system. They're working off of maps that are a stack of paper copies that are probably from the 1940s. Surprisingly, some of it's still accurate, but as projects have gotten done, of course, those are no longer accurate. And they try to keep up with it as best they can. They have record drawings from all of our projects that we do, and I know Bill Coles tried to keep up with a CAD update as best he can, but it's hard to keep up with all of that stuff. And so trying to get everything in one place, organized, up to date, is what we've been talking about doing. We're doing a similar effort with the Virginia Public Utilities right now for their water, steam, electric, and natural gas. They have records that they've been keeping, and we have talked, Britt and I and Jim and Aaron Asselson met, and it just makes a heck of a lot of sense to have everything together. Everybody have access to, you can edit your own stuff, you can restrict certain things, but anyway, so what I prepared was, I think Britt included an email. I was trying to figure out how to go about doing this from a budget standpoint for the city. It is a fairly extensive effort initially. Once it's there and the information's there, it's fairly easy and relatively inexpensive to maintain. It's just a matter of making updates. That initial investment to get it set up, because we're gonna have to go out and do a lot of field work to make sure that all of the old maps information is accurate. So that really takes a lot of time. And so what you have in front of you today, I guess, for consideration is, one, do you want to do it? Two, how do you want to go about doing it from a budget standpoint? And it's certainly more efficient if we can try to do it all in one, as I said in my email, all in one season. We've got people out there, we've got them working, we've got the computers guys there. It's just based on our experience, it's a lot less expensive if you can combine it all into one. That said, you can. So you need to stretch it out over a couple of years, that's fine too. But I guess I'm bringing it to you for discussion and to answer any questions you might have and see how you'd like to proceed.
Thank you, Matt. Before we go to our room, I just want to recognize Jim Rosvit, our Public Works Director, who has disseminated that information to us previously about the efforts that are being made in which to accomplish that, looking for the partnerships moving forward. I believe it has to be automated. I believe you have to find a way in which to do so, whether, as quickly as we can, whether it's over a period of budget, a couple of years, or whatever the case may be, but eventually it has to be done, not only for the safety and security of the workers, but in order for the projects to move forward, we have to have this ability to look at this immediately instead of bringing other people on, take a week or two at a time to try to figure out where everything is at. So I think from that standpoint, the automated system is necessary. And so the cost associated with that will be something we'll be discussing right here, right now. But I really do believe that we have to make sure that we have a shared cost between the City of Virginia and the Department of Public Utilities as we move forward, so that bears a discussion with the collaborative on both parties. So that being said, let's go around our room, go from left to right. First, we'll go to Councilor Paulson, and then we'll go around the room. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you both for identifying this, I guess, system, because I think it's absolutely necessary. I know when we had talked, I think Sherry had mentioned that we didn't have dollars in the budget for this. So I'm hoping that we can maybe figure out where we can draw these dollars. You want to answer that first, Sherry?
Sure, I do. No,
Sherry?
actually, we budgeted 80,000 in the capital, and it's pending on the equipment bond. But there's other ways that we can budget this. We can
Okay.
split it over 2-3 years
Okay.
in, blocks.
Thank you
and
for that,
easy.
because I think that was part of the big discussion of could we afford it. And then the one question, Matt, that I did have, this would be also able to, say if someone wanted to put a fence in their backyard or whatever, this has the survey capabilities right within one of those layers, doesn't it?
I wouldn't say to that level of accuracy. Usually what ends up happening is we, as part of the GIS, we import the county's parcel data. So that's all there, it's there for reference, and it's very close in most cases, but it wouldn't be survey level accurate
It
to
wouldn't
be
be.
able to use, you could use it for a real close, you're probably within a couple feet, but if you're really worried about getting a fence right on a property line or something, you'd want to still get it
Would it ever be
surveyed.
that accurate if the information is put in at some point?
It could be if you went and did a fairly extensive property survey effort to confirm all of the plats and get them all up to today's standards. You could. It would be a pretty extensive effort, but it could be done.
So of the surveys that we currently have here in the department, could those be transferred into the system, or does the system not?
Those are what's in the system now.
Already.
So everything that's recorded at the county
Okay,
is in the system. And so it's just a matter of when the surveys were done, paper surveys versus field
They're
surveys,
as
things like that.
accurate.
There's some discrepancies sometimes.
and I guess the reason I was going there is we had some issues, I think, with a couple people wanting to put some fencing in, and the survey costs were between $500 and $800 to get a survey, and they were running about 4 to 5 months to actually come and conduct the survey. So I was just trying to understand if that would be something that would help our community in terms of, whatever their projects would be going forward. We have such a short window for summertime. So part of the system may be able to assist in that?
It would get you close.
Yeah.
Again,
Just
I'd
let
be
the door-
reluctant if I was gonna spend money to put a fence in and worry about whether or not it was on my neighbor's property or not. I would still probably call a
Get the
surveyor and
survey.
have them come out and do it.
Okay, all right, that was just the question that I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Bearable.
Now, there's a couple of things. I've been around a long time. We had started doing this with the CAD system quite a long time ago, a number of years ago. This system absolutely needs to be done. There are things that we talked about when we were on the CAD system and we had accurate data. Any contractor coming in that needs information, we can eliminate surveys and make them pay us for the information off of this new system that Matt is talking about. So we'll recover money from the contractors, so we can put that in every contract that they have to pay us to use the accurate data that we will have with this GIS system. Homes and businesses and things that need surveys for certain things, that's in our ordinances and stuff that they have to have their own surveys. So we'd have to change all of our stuff with the city. I don't think we should eliminate that. It's a responsibility if you want to put something on your property that you know where it is, what it is, and not the city's responsibility, except for inspections, to make sure those surveys are done. Once you've had a survey done, and it's good for the lifetime of that property, because the county keeps records of that, and that's what Matt is talking about, the ones that are already there and accurate, that'll be in this system. I'm all for this system. We talked about it, 5, 6 years ago, Matt? And I don't know whether we've been charging for using our CAD system or not to businesses, but they'd come in to do work in the city, street work would be an example, because they bring engineers in and other things or Matt does it for additional cost, so we know where things are. And we've had some near misses with big mishaps. One was communications in the ground that here this last go-around, if I remember right, Matt, with what phone companies and stuff, if I remember what they almost took out, and if they'd have taken that a whole, would that have been an expense? So this is something you'll know where the sewers are, you know where everything is eventually when they do this. And the cost that I see are $89,000 is the max. I think it's well worth, and I don't care if we take money out of reserves, to be honest with you, to pay for this. But we should be doing this and get it done ASAP. Because it will pay for itself in the end. We'll just put it in every contract that comes out that they have to use our engineering data that we have on GIS and charge them $1,000, whatever you want to charge them. That's my input. Thank you.
There.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. Matt?
I was just gonna add to that, down the road, when it's done, it will save your crews a lot of time too, because they spend a lot of time right now messing around trying to find things that, if they had the information, if it was accurate, it will save a lot of time down the road. And when usually we call and go for state one call locates and things like that, they're still technically required to go out and do it. But in the case of designs, when they dig, they got to locate during designs, they can send maps. They can just say use the GIS data, which is as accurate as them marking it at that point. So that'll save a lot of time too, I think, for your staff.
And Go for One responds no more than 24 hours, and they come within between 4 and 24 hours anyway, so.
When they're digging, yes,
When they're
correct.
digging, right, okay, thank you. Counselor, any other counselor over here? Okay, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you. because we're mapping the sewers as well, can some of the money come out of the sewer fund? So there would be a little bit of a chunk. So what you're proposing is the actual input of the data? Is that what the $80,000 is?
Going out in the field and physically measuring things and getting survey accurate locations and then inputting the data into the system,
Okay,
correct?
so then my question is, how much is the system? Is there annual fees? I'm guessing that this program is not free, it's not an open source software. So I would like to know if that's additional to the 80,000 and what that looks like.
Yes, there is annual fees. I can't remember off the top of my head. We talked about that because we talked with Public Utilities about splitting those fees. I want to say, it somewhat depends on how many accounts you want too. So if you want a Public Utilities account, if you want a city account, if you want individual, Britt to have an account, Jim to have an account, Counselor Johnson to have an account, that could vary. But generally speaking, I'd say you're probably looking at around $1,000 a year.
And is there an initial cost to purchasing the program?
Yes. I think that might have been part of that $1,000, if I'm remembering, and it's not $1,000 a year, it's less than that a year.
Okay, because I just want to make sure we're not agreeing to have you do all this work and then all of a sudden we have another bill for 10 grand for.
It won't be that much, no.
I just
I'll
wanted to make sure.
clarify and get that information for you, yes.
And then, Jim, this might be more a question for you. Will there be additional costs for us for hardware as we're moving forward, other iPads, that kind of stuff? And I'm fine with it. I think we're way behind on getting this done. This should have been implemented years ago. So I appreciate that we're working towards it. I just want to make sure that as the costs come up, we're ready to purchase more equipment and the proper kind of pads that are like the police department, fire department have a little rougher, their computers are a little more durable. I want to make sure that if that's what we need for Public Works, that we're purchasing those and making sure they're tools that can be used in wet and dirty systems. So I just want to make sure those are all out there and we're aware of that as we move forward. And I have to say, I appreciate the honesty, and sure, we can do this in 2 years, but it's going to cost you more. If we can do it in 1 year, I think that will be great. And I think this is a step forward for the city. Then we don't have to remember where things are anymore. We don't have to remember which drawer the maps are in. It's just accessible. So I'm supportive of this and appreciate the work you've put in. And if you don't have to find the information now, as long as we have it by Tuesday, so it's part of the packet. that
I'll
we can
get it for
approve.
you. I've got it, I just don't have it handy.
Yep, that's all right, Matt. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Nobody else? Okay, so
Mayor?
I have a question real quick before we go. Did you have something, Counselor Beyondich? Okay, okay, in a minute, okay. So this is $80,000, that's the cost, that's the quote, right? This $80,000 is for the entire process. Okay, so I would like to see that cost shared then between us and the public utilities. So if it's $40,000 for us, $40,000 for them, I don't know if that's feasible. I see Counselor Bearable shaking his head, absolutely not.
No,
But I-
because
But if it's
we're
if utilities are included in this, I think it's a consideration. But if not, that's okay. The $80,000 is an investment that we need for the future. We'll save money in the long term, be more safe for everybody, and we'll have the information in real time as opposed to waiting a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks in order to try to dig to find where that is. So I guess you don't have to answer that question. I think it's already been answered with a shaking of the head. So I'll move on from there. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, no, because we have separate portions of utilities, we can't map that all together in one. They'll share their costs on what they own right now. When we do, just like we do with street work, they share the costs and pay us. We can't split that because of the way stuff is set up, Mayor. Matt, I have one other question. My understanding was in the end, we would own that system. Is that not correct? And we just buy the upgraded software and stuff we need, but we own the system, so we can charge for this system, correct? Was
It'll
part
be
of our
the,
system.
it'll be the city, between the city and the public utilities, it'll be your system, yes. Somebody will be the actual physical account holder, whether it's just Britt and Greg can arm wrestle over who's gonna be the account holder.
That's right.
But someone will be the account holder, and you guys will, it's your data. You're paying for it, it's your data.
We do that already when we do street work, we split, and I don't know who keeps track whether, I think we do here, don't we, Brett, usually, and then we charge back the utilities, so it'd be the same aspect that we do now when we do all the street work. So I'm 100% for the system. I don't care, like I said, I don't care if we have to take a few dollars out of reserves to do this coming year, but I'd like to see it done.
Okay.
You want me to clarify the public utilities portion for you, Mayor?
I think I would like to see that because, I mean, if you're mapping utilities stuff as well, are we?
No, their
Separate.
public utilities has their own, they already have the GIS system. They've already done all this work.
Okay,
We
so-
haven't done them on our side yet. And so
So-
what happens when we get a GIS system, they're gonna let us use theirs and we're gonna allow them to use ours.
Right,
We're gonna
so
share data.
I guess that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so.
So they've
what-
already spent the money up front to get all this in place. We haven't gotten there yet.
So what are we actually mapping?
Okay, so we're working with public utilities on mapping their system. That's a completely separate contract.
Okay, very good. Okay.
City of Virginia, we're gonna map your guys' stuff. In the end, we're gonna combine it together. Britt and Aaron and Jim and I have talked about sharing the annual costs of the system so that you're each paying to get your own utilities brought in. Going forward, there'll be a shared cost to operate and maintain the system, and then you have access to it'll all be in one system so that everybody has access to everything, and you'll share those costs however it ends up being divvied
And on
up.
the city side, we have storm sewer lines, sanitary sewer lines, manholes, fire hydrants. Those are the things that we need to have located on
Correct.
our side.
Okay, very good. So then we'll share the services together as we combine them. Thank
And
you
then
for
in
that.
addition, the great thing about it, like John Rusfit, just to recap what Jim Rusfit said at a previous meeting, we can even put our garbage routes in there. So our garbage drivers, if somebody's filling in for the day, they can pull up the GIS of Route B and just follow the map where it goes.
That makes sense. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate
It'll
that.
be really nice, yeah.
Okay, we'll go to Counselor Beyondich first and then over to Counselor Freely. Counselor Beyondich.
you. And a lot of my questions were answered, but Counselor Baraboo, we had an incident, was it last month or 2 months ago, with somebody that had an issue with the water line and couldn't get it shut off on the block. So how does this play into people that have issues like that? Is that a utility issue or is that a city issue?
That depends on who owns that portion of shutting the water off. Now, that water, after I met with the utilities and met with, I can't remember the lady's name, she only lived a block away from me, she was satisfied. They could have shut off the whole block, but that was an inconvenience for the rest of the residents, so they did not. They found somebody that could go in the wet and take care of her. She was okay after everything got done. Just one of those things. And yes, they'll know where all the shut-offs, everything are when they get done with the system. That's correct, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, on the water side, to the extent that the public utilities has record information of where all the shut-offs are, they'll be in the system for their people to use. If they're not in the system, as they find them, they can add them in. So,
And one of the problems, Maya, was the fact that shut-off could not be shut off all the way because they're so old. Some of these are 60, 70 years old, and they can't get them to shut off unless they've been shut off in the past. So that's something that we're gonna have to, in the future, replace some of these as we go. But depending where those shut-offs are, if they're on people's property, then they gotta pay. It's not utilities, so we gotta figure that all out, and the GIS system will help do that.
Please continue, Counselor Beyondich.
So when issues happen after hours, we have staff available to, if it happened on a weekend where somebody has issues, they would be able to pull up and see where everything is and identify it.
yeah, this is live 24/7 once it's in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Freely.
So we purchased this software, it's downloaded into SEH computers. Would you then be the administrator of that programming?
To the extent that you guys want to do it, you're more than welcome to take that on, because it is an option. It's, if you have somebody that's knowledgeable and ends up, that is something you could consider. Otherwise, you call us up, say, hey, would you move this curb stop from point A to point B, or move this manhole, and we can move it. It's just,
I mean, like, so Jim would be able to collaboratively call up whatever information he
Oh,
needs on that
yes.
system, as well as you and any
Yes.
other It would be helpful to our new community planner as well, I'm certain.
Yes. Anybody that wants to call it up and look at it, it depends on what level you want the editing. Anybody can have a viewing capability fairly simply. If you get into the editing, it gets a little bit, depends on how much you trust everybody. I shouldn't even say trust is the wrong word. People might go into the system and move something and not realize they did it, things like that. So you've got to be a little bit careful about who has editing capabilities.
And that's,
But
you know, there's gonna be glitches regardless when you're.
For sure.
doing technology, so I'm just wondering who that will be as the go-to guy that's gonna.
you can call me or us, we'll fix it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Okay, if there are any other comments from the council, we do. Counselor Paulson.
I'll make a motion to, I guess, allow SEH to proceed with the formal quote and breakdown going forward for the next city council meeting for the new GIS system.
Okay, moved by Counselor Paulson to move this forward to the next council meeting. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you.
Britt, if we could, I'd like to, there's three ladies sitting in the audience. Are you here for a specific issue that you'd like to address the council on? That's on the agenda?
Correct, they're item number 4A.
I'm sorry, what?
It's 4A that they're here for?
It's 4A?
Yep,
Okay, we're close.
we're close.
Okay.
One more.
Coming soon.
Yep.
Thank you, Britt.
The next item is Mr. Pat Wertz, Kraus Anderson, regarding the request for approval for a request for proposals for the Virginia Building Demolition Project for the Public Safety Center. And on the table is the actual packets. I did email them to you because they are 100 and some pages. If anybody would like to review the packet, it is on the table.
Yeah, I painstakingly read through this and didn't make it all the way to the end, so I admit that. So, Mr. Wertz, welcome to the council meeting, and give us the info on, we're exciting that we're moving forward with the request for proposal for demo.
Yep, good morning. So it's that packet of some very intense reading information for you when you're bored. So what we're looking to do is, once we get full approval for it, we're going to advertise for bid for 2 weeks after the December 13th council meeting. And what that is going to be for is right now there's roughly 32 houses that have been procured and it could get demoed out. So the plan would be to bid those out and then have an ad alternate to go through a per unit price for each house to go through. So once they do get procured, we know what those values are, so that budget can be set. So we'd advertise out for the 2 to 3 week period, have a mandatory walkthrough on December 22nd, receive bids on January 5th, and then once, get full council approval, we get contracts in place and everything, we'd plan to start roughly middle of February. What that will include is basically demo all the houses, get the foundations out, cap the utilities back a little bit. I know the city's already disconnected a lot of the gas and those kind of components right now. I've been working with Aaron to get Aaron Hazelson, getting those mapped out, and then fill the hole in, and then kind of go from there. One of the things that is going to be coming up as well is there's going to be abatement in some of the houses. Bron has done the report as far as they can. I know Bron is going to be sending over a proposal to kind of coordinate that along with IEA. That's going to be coming up. That's separate. That's direct with the city, not with us, but we'll help coordinate it all, do all that. So kind of the first steps is they abate it, and then we tear down the houses. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you, Bat. So the goal, the objective is to look at approving the advertisement for requests for proposals for the demolition for the public safety building of the structures. And then this will be forward to the council meeting on the 13th for final approval. Then on the 14th, you send it on the street for advertisements, give it a couple weeks, and then move forward from there. Is that kind of the timeline? Okay, thank you. Councilor Freely.
So we've completed the purchase of all of these properties now?
We're down to 5 structures
Yet to be,
that are left to be purchased. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bid for the ones we do own, and then we'll add alternate the other 5. So as they become our property, we'll work on the demolition of them.
and if I have any concerns, I'm realizing that in this process, there's multiple steps that need to be taken, but they are kind of overlapping and intertwining. So case in point, for example, should NTS uncover something that was unforeseen, that's gonna be significant to, hold on, we can't continue until this is taken care of? I mean, is that a potential that?
Well, the good news is where they did find that, that's like in the southeast corner of the proper area, is nowhere near where we're gonna be doing it.
So that's a, right.
Yeah, so right now to go through these areas
The
where it's
hotspots
at.
have already been determined in a sense.
Yes, correct.
All right, that's a good thing. All right, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Okay, anybody else? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So when we go out for these, for the requests for quotes, for bids, are there, in the past, when we've done demolition, I guess the contractor that was awarded the bid then would be able to take all the salvageable items or whatever, and that's part of what we're going to put together within this.
It's gonna be to their discretion, because they have a certain timeline. I don't want this to drag out for 7 months. So we're gonna leave a window to go through. Just talking with some of the guys that do a lot of the bidding contractors in the area, they say roughly two days to get the houses tore down. So it'll take approximately 3 months to get them all done, depending on any issues. So they're gonna have like 3-month window to get the work complete. If they can salvage a bunch of materials to go through within that 3 months, that's up to them. But
So would you recommend putting that language in, is what I'm asking? Does that delay us? If we, or they're just going to do that anyway as they're hauling the material off?
yeah, as they haul the material off.
So they won't actually physically be going house to house prior to that and pulling out any salvageable item?
More than likely not, no.
Okay. And then the other side of that, is there language that then indemnifies the city in terms of asbestos or any lead or anything that they might find as they are?
So that was part of to go through, I mentioned to go through, so Braun did the asbestos survey report.
Yep.
Which that is actually attached in that bidding document to go through listing of all where the asbestos is found. So Braun and IEA is putting together a proposal to coordinate the bids, and then we'll take care of the abatement. So once we learn that, we'll say there was asbestos mastic for the glue, the floor, just to be abated, that'll be done first, cleared, and then the houses will be tore down.
What today, Pat's asking for demolition of the actual houses. We'll be coming to you as soon as I have the documentation for the approval of the contract for the abatement. Because now that we know,
Okay.
minus those 5 houses, where the
So they,
hazardous material is. So there's 2 different bids going on at the same
Right.
time.
so they will physically go in though to the home
will.
and assess, or Braun has already done that?
Braun has already
Braun
done
has
that.
Okay, I think we had that report, I'm almost sure we have.
Yep.
Okay, and then, so that the liability then rests on the contractor that's going to be awarded that bid to properly dispose of the hazardous material.
That's correct.
And the liability rests on that contractor.
When they abate it all to go through, it's in sealed containers, brought to a certified abatement landfill, and then you have everything's documented to go through, and knowing this package from House 16 had, basically, it's all documented.
Okay, and then, so that language will be in, when we put out our RFP, that language will be in the RFP, so the contractor understands the obligation. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions before I ask for council action? Seeing none, looking for council action regarding this item on the agenda. Pat Wertz, Carl Sanderson, to approve the advertisement for the request for proposals for the Virginia Public Safety Demolition Project.
Moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Freedom. Is there support?
Support?
Support by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion?
Right.
Hearing Councilor Freely.
What was the preliminary budget anticipation for what we may incur the cost on this? Okay.
Yes, I do. Do you remember what the original budget was, Pat?
Right around $1 million.
$1 million, yep.
Yep.
And then I will be bringing to the council meeting next week the resolution authorizing us to apply for an IRRB grant for half of what the budgeted cost is. So we'll be applying for a grant for $500,000 for this project. I just didn't have it ready for today, but I had spoken to IRRR, and I have given them the information that Pat's given me, and we've started that process, that preliminary discussion about a grant.
So if it comes in at 3.5, we're going to be,
We're going to have a serious
Looking
talk.
We'll have some problems.
Yes, we'll have-
So, yeah.
we'll be
I really
right back
hope
here
we-
talking about it.
If that happens, I'm not going to come to the next meeting. Yeah.
And it is imperative we move forward as quickly as possible because we had that discussion early on with the IEEE about additional assistance with respect to this project. So let's get moving on this. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Wertz.
Everyone.
Thank you. And finally, item number 4A is review the options for the fitness center instructors at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Good morning, council. If you remember back a few meetings ago, you directed us to hold some public meetings regarding the fitness center operations as far as classes, as far as it pertains to classes. We've had 2 public meetings. Jim Hunt conducted those meetings. They were each attended by roughly or just less than 10 people per meeting. And we have also taken this issue back to the Park and Recreation Commission for further consideration. If you remember way back when we were talking about the fitness center, and we had I believe it was a special called meeting or a committee of the whole meeting that was actually at the event center where we discussed the different pricing structures and operational structures. The council made the decision to follow the Park and Rec Commission's recommendation as far as classes go of going with the model of renting the room out. And as a council, you set that rate at $20 for a 1-hour class. Now, that 1-hour class includes basically a 2-hour window. 30 minutes for setup, your 1-hour class, 30 minutes for cleanup. This way, we don't have classes back to back, allows the instructor time to do the setup, to clean up, for members of the class to congregate either before or after the class. And we have had some interest in those classes. In fact, earlier this week, I had a young gentleman in our office that brought us his certificate of insurance, and he's preparing to, after the start of the year, to start offering some fitness classes with that model. I will let Jim turn it over to Jim to discuss what went on or the discussions that took place in our public meetings that we've had here in the past month.
Good morning, everyone. We did hold 2 hearings. There was counselors involved in both of those meetings, and Britt was involved in the second one. As Brian said, we had about 7 to 10 people in attendance, and the request that we hear, particularly in the initial meeting, was that the instructors would like to come on as part-time or employees and to provide that service to our clients of the fitness center. We have talked about that. Brian kind of laid out the guidelines or what this council has approved. And then we met a second time to the audience of about the same people. One idea that was brought up in the second meeting is that the members in attendance of the 2 meetings that we had would just kind of group together themselves and use the fitness room as members of the fitness, and they would organize themselves, and as members of the fitness center, they would use that fitness room accordingly for stretching, taekwondo, Zumba, etc. There is still also the idea of signing employment agreements with a couple or a few different instructors that are still thinking that that might be the way that they can provide a good service and provide their business some ability to move and book memberships for the fitness room. So that's a long-winded description. Anybody have any questions about that?
Okay, we'll start from left to right. First, Councilor Freely, then Councilor Bearable, and then over to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freely.
So what model are you guys leaning in the direction of, employees versus contractors?
We're leaning in the direction that has been approved by the city council in the $20 for up to 2 hours of room space that they can rent that room without a contract and without any type of employment through the city seems to, at this point, make the best sense for our operation.
That is also still the recommendation of the Park and Rec Commission. We discussed this at our November Park and Rec Commission meeting with all the different options, and their recommendation is that we not change our mode of operation at this point.
It was those contractors, though, that suggested the potential for becoming employees of the city then? Did I-
Correct.
Yes.
But we've opted to not go in that direction at this point,
Correct.
from your recommendation, which is my preference as well. The only concern there would be in continuity of instruction. I mean, I'm assuming these people have an interest to be there and are going to continue to provide those services, whether they're an employee or not. It appears they have that kind of interest level.
Yes, yes, there seems to be an
Has there been a
interest.
schedule already established then, or are we still waiting for us to make the decision to get this rolling?
No instructor has come forward and booked the room yet for instructions based on the framework that was approved in here for the $20 for up to 2 hours.
The sooner we move on this, the sooner we'll have people in there utilizing it the way it should be.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Baraboo?
I'm also in the aspect that we should use contract individuals, not employees. Every time we started messing with additional employees, it costs the city a lot more dollars. This way, the independent contractor has to provide their own insurance, other things when they utilize and do these things. They have the option of charging whatever they want for their classes, so they can pick up, if it's $5 extra, they can pick up their costs of all their.
Can I ask a question? You referred to independent contractor. When I hear you say that, I'm hearing you say that we are hiring an independent contractor. That's not how we are currently set up. We're currently set up for them to rent a room from us and run their own program, and we're completely
So
hands-off.
are you telling me then that if they rent that room, are you going to have the insurance liabilities and all the other stuff from the rental
The young-
contract that they sign?
The
They're
young
gonna have to
man
sign-
who came to speak with me this week that is looking at doing classes in the room presented me with his million and a half dollar insurance policy, also naming the city and the event center as additionally insured. And so, yes, as a renter that's doing a fitness class, they would be providing us the insurance. Also, if we were to go the route of hiring independent contractors, such as one of the next things that's on the agenda, are figure skating coaches, those individuals that we hire as independent contractors, they also have to provide their own insurance.
Okay, you've answered my question, because I don't want us getting stuck with these
Correct.
costs unless we absolutely have to. We're always in a position, because we own the buildings, of insurance and liabilities, even though people have separate. But at least that comes out first, then we might end up secondary. But I'm okay with the way you're going with it, Brian and Jim.
Thank you, Counselor Baraboo. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I was at the first meeting, was unable to make the second meeting, but the thing that I heard the most from the first meeting from actual fitness instructors was they were concerned about the logistics of them managing fees and schedules and that kind of stuff. And it was about, one of the questions I had asked was, of the instructors was, are you sure that your customers are understanding the value of what they're getting? They were concerned about the $20 rental fee. They were concerned about having their own insurance because they only charge a minimal amount of money for their classes. And so I just want to bring that up, that what the expectation is that this is going to be very inexpensive for folks. And in reality, there may need to be some adjustment to that way of thinking. I too am not okay with having employees, additional employees. I think that It takes away from what the fitness instructors can offer the general public. I appreciate the independent contractor clarification, because an independent contractor can decide when and where they're going to work. We can't dictate that we have this slot open, you have to work between 3 and 5. That independent contractor, that crosses that line between employee and independent contractors. So I think that we're good staying away from that. A question is you had said that at the last meeting, they brought up about a group of coming and just doing their own thing would that be something we would need to approve as an option, that for $20 a group could rent that space as a rental? How would that look if a group of people wanted to come in?
Currently, that's already taking place. This morning at 7 a.m. when I was walking through the track, I was walking around a group of individuals that had gathered to do a walking class on their own, and they were walking and stretching throughout that class and doing the stairs. They had an individual that was leading them, and our facility is 100% hands-off. Would basically be like if you as city councilors decided after a stressful committee of the whole meeting that you're all members of the fitness center and you wanted to come over and do a weightlifting competition and see who could lift the most weights. Something like that. They are just individuals that are gathering together, utilizing these individuals were on the walking track, which no membership is required, but the talk that took place in an earlier meeting is for those individuals that have a fitness membership, gets them access to the weight room and the fitness room. They could just go into the fitness room as 5 to 6 individuals together, stretch and use the equipment in there on their own as a organized group of people. Does that answer your question?
It does. I guess I'm looking for the ability for them to reserve that space to do that. Do we have the ability for one of our fitness members to reserve whatever that looks like, whether there's a fee or not? And then because if they were doing that as a group and they had a leader, there's still no liability to the city if they, as a group, someone has rented that space, and whatever they do in that space, as long as it falls within what's allowed in the center. So would they have the ability to rent that space privately and not as I'm trying to figure out if they're going to do that, what constraints are there for me to come in while they're having their class and use some of the other equipment, or do my own thing in the room while they're having their organized, not rented time?
At the last meeting that I was at, the one that I did go to, we did mention that if everybody in the room has a membership, they cannot, and they didn't reserve the room, they can't make it exclusive. It has to be inclusive. And they actually assured me that I could come walk with them every morning at 7 if I wanted, because they invite everybody. Everybody's open to come on in. They don't mind. And if they are doing a class and somebody wants to come and use the weights, they don't mind. Come on in. I mean, that's fine. That's what the room is for, was to everybody to use. And so we did tell them that if you all get memberships and decide to use that room as your day that you're doing weights today, just make sure to keep it inclusive and you don't block anybody from coming on.
And I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Britt, because I think that's the simplest answer for what the citizens at the first meeting I were at were looking at. I still am supportive of our ability to rent it for $20 for 2 hours. That's $10 an hour. I think that's the best way, and we just balance that. I'm not supportive of us acquiring more employees. And based on what I heard from the fitness instructors, that we would still have to schedule them, and they may not be able to work when we schedule them, because that would be part of the employment agreement, is we're going to have scheduled meetings on our fitness classes Mondays and Tuesdays at 9 p.m. You need to work. And they would not necessarily have the option to say, no, I'm not going to work that night. So I think we leave it alone, and we do just encourage folks to gather and however that's going to work for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I did attend both meetings. The first one, there were an awful lot of questions. The second meeting, I was pleasantly surprised. We did talk about independent contractors, but I don't think they were aware that when we hire, like our skating, that if people sign up, the money comes to the city, correct? And they just get a base wage. The way they're doing it, I mean, it's kind of nice because everybody can go at whatever time. They're not in the way of in the walking path. They keep their space to themselves. And one of the big things is, I said at the first meeting, was when this building was built and we partnered with the Y, we had no issues with workouts because everybody was going to be doing that part at the Y. So when the Y closed, that put the burden back on us. I don't think it should be a burden. I think the space is there. I think, I don't know that we really need to do anything. Do you feel that, Jim, from our last meeting?
Correct. With that third idea that came up of loosely gathering and using the facility as members, that seems to have made sense with the audience that was in attendance in that second meeting. And I also, the ladies behind us are here to hear what we're talking about, and maybe they have something to add to this, I do not know.
That was going to be my question, if we could ask if the members that showed up today, if you have any input, is that okay?
Sure. Before you come up, I just want to make one quick comment so that you have everybody's perspective, including mine as well, and then we'll have you come up and talk about what you'd like to do. For me, the first question is, are the instructors members of the fitness center? Do they have a membership?
The group that were in those two meetings, I don't believe a majority of them had memberships at that time.
So if they're members, you can bring people in, you can do your thing, whatever the case may be. But if you're going to charge a rate or not charge a rate and rent a building for $20, I think you should be able to rent a facility for $20 to do your fitness thing. And at the same time, you can't negate anybody else from the general public coming in to use it as well. It's just like you said, a loosely gathered thing. There's no liability to the city in that regard. If all the instructors were members of the fitness center, it wouldn't make any difference one way or the other. So you're still bringing people in that are non-members. So in order to do that, I think there has to be a mechanism in place to allow non-members to come in and use that facility, because that's the way it's set up, right? If you're not a member, you can't use that facility, correct? So if the instructors aren't members, then they have to, I think the rental option is the way to go. You rent the thing for that particular purpose. You whatever classes you hold is loosely thing, and they're liable for the issues. They provide the information. It just makes it a lot more simpler. With me, for the skating coaches, it's different because it's a regular program that's done on a regular basis. They have a lot of people that come in, and the revenue stream that's developed by the MEC or by the Ontario Motors Event Center is there. But this, I think, is a little different animal. So thank you for that. I'd like to hear if you'd like to come up and speak, and then we'll move on to any questions or comments. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, can we have one question answered by the attorney? I'm seeing an issue here, a big one. You have a member of the fitness center, and they bring in half a dozen people that aren't members. There then becomes a liability on the part of the city. So they all have to be members if they come into that facility. Is that the way?
That's what we discussed at that meeting, that if they do not rent the room, for them to hold a guided something
Where
in the
somebody
weight room,
rents
they
it,
have
then-
to all be fitness members.
So they
If
can't bring
rent
in-
it, then it's theirs to use, and they can bring in non-member people into that one room for those 2 hours, and that's it.
If it's a certified class with an
Correct.
instructor. Okay, that's the clarification.
With their
I wanted.
liability, yes.
Yeah, because otherwise we have the liability.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I think that's where we're tracking at this point in time. Please, now, thank you for waiting. Come on forward, and please, the light is on. Please state your name for the record, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting.
I'm Debbie Packinen, and I'm not a fitness instructor. I'm just a member.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am?
I'm Marcia Looney, and I'm also a member of the group that meets at the ITMEC, so.
Okay, so right now you meet loosely as a group and do things on your own together? Okay,
We don't have memberships at this time.
okay, so you're doing the walking thing right now?
Yes.
Which I've seen, and it's looking good. Okay. Any questions, comments you might have?
Our only question and comment was that when you look at the city's model of how they would plan to rent out the room to instructors, so when I was at the Y, I would pay one monthly fee to use the Y. I would be able to go to one class, two class, however many classes I wanted for that same fee. The model that you are all proposing here, I don't think you realize the burden it puts on people. So if we wanted to attend like 3 different classes, we would be looking at 3 different fees, which could, mount up. So that was our concern, and that's why we've had these meetings. So I think at the last meeting, we wanted the city to explore some kind of a professional service agreement, whether it be similar to the skating coaches. It also takes the burden off the instructor for having to figure out what they're going to charge per class, how many members, they're trying to cover their costs. So I think that was just our request. At the last meeting, we talked about the city exploring further the professional service type of agreement versus the renting of the room for the instructor.
So neither one of you are members of the fitness center, is that correct?
Not at this point, no.
But if you weren't, you would want to come in and participate in a fitness program by an instructor. So you don't have to be a member, you just come in and you work on these. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Well, there's 2 different models. Like you explained, the model of becoming a member and then just loosely working out as a group, that's acceptable. But the other issue has to do with other instructors also besides the group that meets in the morning. I guess I don't know. We just talked about like a professional service type of agreement not to be employees, not to be independent contractors, but so that the burden of holding these classes falls off of the instructor. So the instructor doesn't have to do the bookwork, doesn't have to figure out, how they can cover their costs for each separate instructor. The model I'm used to is the Y, which was paying a monthly.
Well, sure, if everybody's paying a monthly fee, it's not an issue. But if you're not paying a monthly fee, and you're not, part of the why you go to those classes, you're already paying a monthly fee for those classes, right?
Correct.
But
not
here, in this particular case, our fitness instructors may not be members of the fitness facility. You two are not members of the fitness center, so it's a little bit different from the why to this. If you were members, it wouldn't be an issue. So, Councilor Johnson had a question, or maybe for you, Councilor Johnson.
It's my understanding that a majority of the members of the Y did not get free classes. That's only, my understanding was, is silver sneakers or something to that effect. There was a certain level where those classes did not cost extra. So for me to go in and take a class, I would have had to pay a fee to take the class, or my children needed swim lessons, they would have had to pay a fee. So I think that's something that you need to be aware of. And what we're saying here is that if you're a monthly member of the ITMEC Fitness and your instructor is a monthly member of the fitness, you all can get together and have your class for no fee. And again, I think this comes down to what the city needs to do in the best interest of the city, as opposed to what the fitness instructors want, the work they want to put into their class to hold a class. And I think that's something really important to keep in mind here, that no matter what happens, if the city has an agreement with a professional to do any kind of service, there's still insurance. They still have to demonstrate that they have liability insurance as part of what they're providing, because they're still in business and they're still providing a service. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, that we We are not a fitness organization. The YMCA was a fitness organization. They had all this stuff in place for years and years and years, and we are trying to do our best to provide a service to the general population. So my encouragement to you would be to join. It's, Brian, $25 a month, correct? And all your friends get together and you just start planning. Someone have to take the lead, and then then that liability falls on all of you. And if they don't want insurance to lead a class, I would hope they'd get it. Anybody who's providing a service should have some sort of insurance no matter what, because we live in a litigious society. We keep people like Mr. Lindsay gainfully employed as much as possible, overworked even. And as customers, you should make sure that your instructor has that, because if you get hurt because of something they do, what are you going to do? How are you going to make sure that your medical bills are paid moving forward? And that's, I think, what we're looking at is how do we best support everybody, or I shouldn't say we, I apologize. That's what I'm looking at is moving forward, is how to do that. I think you will get a better bang for your buck if you are able to organize the classes that you need specifically for yourselves as members, as opposed to relying on the city to provide something and paying somebody who may not fit what you're looking for. I think that that's one of those things that if I had a group of friends and we wanted to Zumba, I don't know if Zumba's in anymore or not, that's what we would do, is we'd get together and do some Zumba. I think it's a better use of the space, and I think it's a better service to those of you who want that service. So I just wanted to also point out that no matter what happens, anybody who interacts with the city in a formal manner is going to have insurance and provide that proof.
I guess my only question is, how are you looking at this differently than from the skating program, the way that's set up?
The skating
Britt?
instructors have the independent contractor agreement. Like we mentioned, we talked about that agreement that requires them to have the $1 million liability insurance. And then it's always been a park and rec program. Figure skating has been a program under the recreation department for as long as anybody can remember. Since Ida, I can't remember her last name, but.
So I mean, do you collect
We
the
collect
fee
all
that
the fees, and then we pay them a stipend. And so they are actually our independent contractors, the figure skating coaches are.
But not employees? is that
Not
correct?
employees, no.
And
And
you're
they are required to have insurance and liability insurance.
but you're looking at this program differently then?
It didn't
or-
sound like the instructors wanted to be independent contractors. They didn't want to enter into that agreement with the insurance. It was the particular problem.
They did say want to take that model, they could, is that?
That's what we're talking about today. We could offer that if that's,
I guess I don't know how much, that entails, but I know we've been very fortunate to have somebody that's been leading our classes without reimbursement, and I think for her to come up with something and have it fair for the people, some of the people that do take the programs are on a fixed income. And so it's
Okay, so the example that I look at, and I think that the simplest thing from my perspective is to if you want to use the fitness center, you pay the $25 a month. If there's instructors, they pay the $25 a month. You can instruct, you can pick an instructor, they can hold classes, groups classes coming in anytime they want. It's at no cost to you other than the $25 a month. So say a fitness class is being offered 3 times a week, and you go 3 times a week and you pay, $5 for the class or $10 for the class 3 times a week. I mean, and then you get those classes, period. Well, if you're members of $25 a month, you get use of the entire facility, everything, from the time it opens till the time it closes. So I think it's the best bang for your buck. But for me, with all due respect, I think that I don't think an independent contractor works in this regard because they're so, it's not a park and rec program, number one. And number two, that if you want to do these kind of things, and you are members of this organization, and we have a liability with respect to running the fitness center. So if you, as a group or as an instructor, as a member, you can hold your classes. You don't have to have those liability insurance because you're not charging anybody for it. But if you have instructors that are going to charge money, as Councilor Johnson alluded to and others, there has to be a liability mechanism in place as well. But as members, you don't need that. So.
Is there insurance on those rooms already? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. When you sign up for the membership, you release the liability from the city. So you are taking your own or your own liability. Yep.
Correct. Okay.
Is there a liability, say, if you're just on the walking track and something?
Nope, that's posted, use at your own risk. If you read that really big poster with the small print, it does say use at your own risk. We're not responsible for.
Question, ma'am, or comment?
My name is Eleanor Christensen, and I was just wondering, is there any way that we as seniors had silver sneakers, and through our insurance, it was covered for the Y. Is there any way that the city could incorporate with the insurance companies for silver sneakers? Because it's becoming a little bit expensive to be able to go to the facility and to have an instructor.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. We did talk about that briefly with our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber. We don't have that in place right now, but what I'd like, Eleanor, if you would just take a moment and have Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director, come up and give you an answer to that question that you just asked.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Brian?
We have placed in, for the Silver Sneaker, what you do is you go into their online portal and put your facilities information in, and then you get a generic email back saying, thank you for submitting your interest in being a certified Silver Sneaker site. We have done that. That email also feels like I'm back in high school asking a girl out for a date because it says, don't call us, we'll call you when we're ready. We didn't follow that guidelines. We have additionally called them and to follow up of, hey, we put in this, we'd like to be a Silver Sneaker site, and we still have not gotten anywhere. We've even gone the route of, we know a Silver Sneaker site in the area has closed, so we know there's a deficiency of Silver Sneaker sites in our area. Here we are, look at us. We want to do this, but we have not gotten anywhere with that.
Hey, thank you. I have a question before we go back to Councilor Paulson and Councilor Johnson. Just to follow up, Eleanor, do you spend, how much money I shouldn't ask you that because it's a financial question. So Silver Sneakers covers a portion of that, or they cover the whole thing?
They cover, from what I understand, they cover what people, as you go in, you're covered. I don't know how that works. Do you know how that works?
I do.
Okay.
Brian?
Thank you.
How Silver Sneakers work is if somebody has the Silver Sneaker benefit on their insurance, they would sign up with us as a Silver Sneaker member. Every time they come to the facility and scan their badge, we would receive $2 up to $20 per month. At the end of the month, we would have to generate a report of every Silver Sneaker member with the date and time that they came to the facility, submit that to Silver Sneakers, and then they cut us a reimbursement check for that. So if I have Silver Sneakers and I come one time, the city would receive $2 for my membership for the month. Whereas you come every single day, we would be capped at $20 a month. Even if she came 25 times, we would still be capped at that $20 per month.
And that's per Silver
Per
Sneaker member?
individual, yes.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, Okay, I'm going to say, I'm going to reserve this idea to later on, maybe somebody else will bring it up about how we can maybe bridge that gap somehow. But let's go left to right first, and then we'll move on. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I had my light on quite a while. I wanted to kind of go through, if I could backtrack, if you
Yeah, I
don't mind.
apologize. Go
No,
ahead.
no,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
just, I don't want to
Go ahead.
rehash, but I attended the first meeting and I was unable to attend the second meeting. At the second meeting, let me back up. At the first meeting, it sounded like there was definitely issues with the instructors understanding how to collect the fee, and there was also discussion on users that were, like, say, on a fixed income. How am I going to pay for, if I'm used to paying one of the, I think, people that was grandfathered in at a $40 a month Y membership because they'd been there that long. And so the justification is, if I'm going to take 3 classes a week, how much are those classes going to be? And then it's going to price me out of the game of attending XYZ or how many classes per week. So that was one discussion. Now, the Y fee, I think, was, the latest was $55 a month. And the city's charging $25 a month, so we had talked about there's a $30 a month basically cushion that could be utilized for taking classes. And this doesn't include Silver Sneakers at all, this is just straight memberships. So part of that, I'm just trying to recapture that meeting, and I hope I'm doing an okay job. But the other portion of that was that the instructors were trying to figure out how they could charge, and if someone's going to take one class, and then they're going to take Lisa's class, and they're going to do that, like how is that going to work? And the certificate of liability insurance, and then the room rental. So those all were things that were discussed, and then it was going to come forward at the second meeting to kind of maybe brainstorm a little further. And it sounds like when you came to the second meeting, and I want to clarify this, because it sounds like as long as everyone has memberships, and then they can reserve the space, or basically just group together loosely and be at the space at the same time, they can do the class at no charge. But there's an instructor that's not getting paid, is that correct? And part of that reasoning or rationale for an instructor to do part of this is to make some revenue, is that not correct? So were there as many instructors there having this discussion as to how they're gonna generate their own revenue from this type of a situation? Because I feel like, I love the fact that it sounds like it all solved itself. But in reality, it's not like what Counselor Friedli was saying in terms of cohesiveness or consistency of classes. What's going to be the incentive for just group activity with no instructor getting paid? And that's one question I have. I don't know if someone can answer that. That was just.
That actually was discussed too, and that's where they came up with the professional services agreement again.
And again,
that requires the
I had
liability
discussed
insurance.
the professional services agreement at the first meeting, and I know most people are opposed to this, but I'd like to share my thoughts. So say you've got that $30 cushion, and we could capture, say if you want to do a membership with no classes, it's $25 a month. If you want to do a membership with classes, say it's $55 a month, you take that $30 and you put it in a fund that would fund your professional services agreement. But whatever the dollar amount would be in there couldn't exceed, so if only 10 people took your classes, you're only making $300 during that month. Now, that's not going to make that instructor much money. Almost like a pass-through is what I had discussed originally, but what I'm trying to understand is what's the incentive for an instructor to come, and then there is a drawback if you're paying for individual classes on a fixed income, although the fee that we have is only $25 a month, it's a very reasonable fee, and I can't, maybe people wouldn't exceed more than 3 classes a month. I don't know if classes are charged $10 a class, I don't know what that, I guess that hadn't been fleshed out. And I'm not trying to put a monkey wrench in anything. I'm trying to make it where it is sustainable and also where it would have consistency of classes and consistency, you'd have more members if you had more consistency. And more instructors would then be wanting to come forward to teach Zumba. I mean, I don't know, I like to go to classes, but if I was with a group of people that are like me, we wouldn't get very far because I don't know how to instruct a class. So I'm trying to understand how we do this. It's not a park and rec program, I get that. Is there a way to say, okay, here's your tiered levels, because people that are used to being, you know, we have a gap with the Y not being here anymore. There is a definite deficit with the Y not being here. So if people are used to paying, the last rate at the Y was at $55 threshold and being able to utilize classes, could we have a tiered system and we say $25 was just a straight membership to use the rooms, and if you want classes, it's $55 or whatever have you per month. We take that overage and we use that overage towards a professional services arrangement. And I'm not saying that that's the best way to go, but from what I was hearing at the first meeting, and it sounds like at the second meeting, everything sorted itself out, but it still leaves the instructors with no incentive to instruct. So that kind of confuses me, you know, like if a whole bunch of, I don't know, like if you're used to working out and you're gonna say, I'm gonna do a weightlifting class, and you're happy to lead the class, but if a bunch of people that don't really know how to do weightlifting are gonna have a class together, no one's gonna be able to lead that class. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to understand, what you're asking is, what is your model? We're saying it's not a park and rec model, but there needs to be some element of incentive for, I mean, I think you get a lot more memberships if you had more incentivized and then figured out a way in which to reimburse instructors. I think you'd have more membership, you'd have an increase in membership from even the 25 to the 55. And then, you know, that overage then could be put in a pot. Does that make sense? Kind of what and I know I was getting at that at the last meeting, and I know you're shaking your head.
I'm going to tell you why in a minute.
Okay, but I mean, it's about the liability insurance. You can still get liability insurance, but the way it states now, no instructors are ever going to get paid if they host a volunteer class. And if they do want to charge, they've got to have the liability insurance. So why wouldn't we try to capture the revenue of the $55 or whatever? I'm just trying to think of it as put on my business hat, as well as trying to accommodate those on a fixed income and those that want to instruct for and make some money. So if you guys could maybe help me walk through that, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So a lot to discuss there. Once we get done with this discussion, we're going to take a little short break. But Eleanor, do you have a comment before we go to Councilor Johnson?
I have to agree very much with what she spoke about, but the thing about it is, we never paid to be a member of the Y. It was all inclusive. So we never paid that 55 or whatever the amount is. It was once you were on senior sneakers, then it accommodated everything. And when we had the whole facility, the pool and everything. At one time, they charged for using special classes for the pool, but then when I hadn't been for a while, and then they started, the pool was inclusive with senior slippers. So everything was inclusive, so we didn't pay that extra $30.
And I might just add on the Silver Sneakers program, what that is it's a subsidization. So it's a lower, it's subsidized. So it's like when your insurance company bills your insurance, or when the health facility bills the insurance company and you're on Medicare, there's only a certain percentage of reimbursement. So Silver Sneakers is more of a subsidized program, which is fine because it adds up to almost $25 a month, but that's how that program works.
Initiated.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to point out is the importance of the seniors sneakers, people staying healthy, and that was the whole principle of the whole idea of having this, and people keep, and then you need somebody as an instructor to give you the right form, because invariably you can hurt yourself. You can, if you're not doing it the right way. So they are very, very important with this facility. So with that said, I hope that we can come up to some kind of where the city of Virginia will take in the fact that they are helping seniors stay healthy.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that, just to find a way in which we can accommodate that.
Absolutely.
Go to Councilor Johnson, he's been waiting a long time, and then back over to Councilor Bearable. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. So it was also brought up about community ed instructors, and I would encourage you all to think about that. Community ed can solve a lot of those problems, but there's still going to be a fee. And I think that's the main part of what I'm hearing right now, is that you all don't want to pay a fee because everything was free before, but it was being paid by somebody. There was some kind of, something was happening, and what the city, we don't have the resources to provide free services. Almost all of our programs in Park and Rec cost some money. There may be some scholarships available or that kind of stuff, but in order to not raise the levy more than 4%, in order to maintain, there has to be income to match what we're putting out. I would encourage you and your friends to start writing letters to your insurance companies. Start calling them every day. If we've done that, that's what y'all need to do too. It's your insurance company, however they're affiliated with Silver Sneakers, that's holding up this end. I've been in Brian's office. We've had this discussion. You all need to do something yourselves. Write letters to your insurance, call them, email them, tell them you want this program here in Virginia, have your friends do it. That's how it's going to move along quickly. We're just one little city in the middle of their multi-billion-dollar corporation, but they'll listen to you. You're the ones paying the premiums. You're the people that are doing it. So I would really ask that you do that. I know if you came, I would have no problem supporting a letter. If you all needed a letter, I would even bring it up from the city saying we want this officially. If your group came and asked for that, I can't see any reason why the council wouldn't support a letter of support like that. We are, the other thing, and I don't know, I'm going to ask this very carefully, but is there any reason that you all don't tip your instructors after your classes? And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Would you please, unfortunately, would you please come forward to the microphone? I apologize for you have to do that, but we are recording this for the general public, and the public would like to hear everybody's comments, so thank you.
I guess Mary Beth has been doing this out of just her desire to provide exercise for us, and when the Y closed, I guess there was sort of a void, and so we've been trying to work on, something, but I guess as far as I am concerned, I would pay like a Y fee. If there were classes available, I would pay the Y fee, or whatever fee that you would have, and then I would be able to take classes from the different instructors. So, I mean, I'm not looking for any free, room or anything like that, but I guess our main concern is that it would be something that would be simplified, that the instructors would be getting a fair compensation. So, but no, I wouldn't just say I wouldn't pay any more than $25 a month. I would, if I was going to be taking classes from several people, I'd be paying more. So, but yeah, when the Y closed, there was a very big void. A lot of people are still trying to find places here and there. I guess the center that we have is centrally located and has, facilities. So I guess more, that's what I was looking for. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, I'm going to be a big naysayer in this whole discussion, okay? Number one, when we have these instruction, these classes, there's room capacity for only so many people. I think it's 20 or 25, somewhere in there. Is that correct, Jim? 27, sir. 27, okay. So for an instructor to make any money on this, if he's going to be on his own, he has to charge a fee. He has to be able to cover his costs, and that's not a lot of people to cover your costs in here. One of the reasons, and I'm going to say it straight out, the Y closed. They didn't have enough fees that they were charging. They didn't have enough income coming in to cover their costs. If they're giving all these classes free and stuff, that's a no-brainer. I ran $1 million worth of businesses, and you have to cover your costs. And the Y did not cover their costs when you look at their financials. And if Eleanor is correct that they got everything free because they're seniors, et cetera, I don't have anything against seniors. I'm a big senior. I'm 76 years old. So I understand that. But we would have to, if we do the model that Councilor Paulson is talking about, we'd have to hire an extra employee just to service back, taking care of the dollars that will be reimbursed and et cetera. You know how expensive it is to put an employee in. If they're going 7 days a week with instructors and classes, we're talking a full-time employee to do the reimbursements and et cetera. That's a huge amount of money and liability plus benefits for us as a city. So the independent, not the independent, but the instructors charge their own fees, take care. If you're going to be in business, you got to take care of your own expenses. You got to take care of whatever you need to do. Your costs out, your income in. And if you end up with a profit, that's so be it. That's part of doing business. Membership would help if the people all had memberships. They could provide their own classes, as we talked about, but they'd all have to have memberships to have their own individual class and set up time with either Jim or with Brian to utilize a class throughout the day for 2 hours. They could go in there for free and have a class if they have somebody that knows how to instruct and train people, especially if they're doing any weightlifting or anything like that, because that does require instruction. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not for a reimbursement program if we were to reimburse an instructor off of fees if we charge more and then put part of it in a pot. That's extra employee that has to do work for us as a city. And we're having enough time with all the contracts that we have out there for unions and stuff with the raises we're going to have to give out here because of the competition in the fields of union and the price of our increases. And I want to hold our levy increase to 4%. We can't afford it anymore. Now the argument comes, well, everybody's paying for that ITMEC, even outside individuals that don't live in Virginia. That's not true. The building facility itself is being paid for by the whole regional area. The prices and the employees are paid by the city of Virginia taxpayer dollars. It has to be separate generated money. We cannot use any of that tax money and bond money that we received as a 1% sales tax. We cannot use that for salaries of any employees in that building, period. So all the expenses for employees fall on the city of Virginia's taxpayers' back. Nobody from outside. And we want it to be used by outside people, but they have to pay something to use that facility. And I just think a fair price, $25 is, when we approve that, that is very, very reasonable. I don't know what the instructors would charge. That's something that we'd have to research on to find out what they would charge per class. It may not be that much, depending on the instructor. That's all I have to say, and I know not very many people like what I'm saying, but that's okay. I'm done with my council duties as of the first of the year, so I'm going to get my last say in whether people like it or not.
All right, thank you. So I know we've discussed this at length, and I don't think, from my perspective, we're going to come up to a resolution right now. We are discussing this, and there's been a lot of options on the table, a lot of things, a lot of ideas that we need to feather out. So I think this bodes for more conversation on this subject. So I would like just to limit one more comment, and then I'd like to move on. So Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to respond to Councilor Bearable. I wasn't I guess I wasn't insinuating that it would be an employee base. I was trying to put together how we could conduct a professional services agreement with the overage. The capacity of that room is 27 people. So say you had 20 people taking classes per month, or per, 20 people a class, okay? That's, if you use that $55 model, that's $600 a month extra that you'd be putting into a pot. So my question is, and as we continue this discussion, could we look at a model, and Brian, maybe you could help research this, where if they had a tiered system, because we're not paying anything out of the cities. Just like we do on the next agenda item, it's a stipend. It's a professional services agreement.
Somebody still has to do it, though, in the city. We do it with our skating people, or city employees.
Yeah, let her
What the heck
continue.
are you talking about?
Let her, yeah.
I haven't been in business long enough to understand.
Counselor Bearable, hang on just a moment. Let Counselor Paulson finish. Counselor Paulson.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, we're just trying to get to the heart of the matter here, but I'm wondering if within our rec desk, we have, Brian, within rec desk, we have capabilities. There's a app that the skating coaches use, I'm pretty sure, to log in hours or what have you.
In just a quick brainstorm, right now, we have set up in Rec Desk a fitness membership. We could create another membership type of a class membership that could be an add-on. But like Counselor Baraboo's saying is then comes the staff time and going, okay, how many active members do we have in there that is generating X amount that translates to this many potential classes that we have. Now let's find the instructors for them. So it will
There is a
create
layer. I would
additional staffing considerations that the council would need to consider of adding more workload to a or multiple staff members.
And I would like to explore that, first of all, because I really feel that there's some kind of an app out there, probably a freebie, that could in fact keep track of that. Like, you log, as you swipe in or whatever, you're there, it tracks that. So, I'd like to see that explored. I don't know, I don't mean to push this, I'm trying to solve a problem. And it sounds like the problem was already solved when everyone came together, and I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench into it, but there's no incentive for instructors to teach classes and consistency of classes. So if we're just collecting the overage, I don't know why we couldn't use that no matter, maybe it doesn't even need to be tracked. It's just, here's the money that's come in, and disperse it through the amount of instructors. Maybe it's just a math thing, I'm not sure. But Brian or Britt, do you understand what I'm trying to get at here? And would that be something that we could feasibly explore without having, it's not, I guess we'd have to say how much staff time would it take, if we could find a program that already exists and it's not really a staff time issue. I would be very much open to doing something like this. If it's cost prohibitive, then obviously not, but I think we should explore it.
Are you looking for an answer, or?
I kind of am.
Well, not to continue to throw a monkey wrench onto this, but then what type of classes are we offering? Are we offering stretching classes? Are we offering Zumba classes? Are we offering step aerobics?
I think that depends, Brian, that would depend on what instructors come forward. Let them determine, and let the public determine what type of classes they want.
If we're running the classes, though, we need to be, in my mind, we need to be looking for, this is the class that we want. Now we have to go find an instructor to teach this class.
I would look at it completely opposite of that.
Okay, so you would look at it the way that if an instructor comes to us, that's the class that we offer.
Well, I suppose you'd have to have enough people. I mean, those instructors would have to come together, and it sounds like a couple of them already have come together. And I had asked them to run some financial numbers of what they would need to charge versus how many numbers in attendance would need to justify renting the room and having the liability insurance. So I think there's things to explore here, but I don't want to close the door on opening up a different avenue to the utilization of this building and alienate people that are on a fixed income potentially because they have to pay per class, and it would be more expensive for them to do that plus have a membership. So I'm trying to, I don't know how else I can explain it or say it. I'm trying to come up with a solution where it's a win-win for everybody without taking a lot of our staff time. We can't do that, obviously, I know that. But there's got to be programs out there or an app that tracks these things. I mean, if you look at, even at that $600 a month, I'm looking at what we're paying these skating coaches. I mean, that's really not much overage as it is. So
Correct.
I feel like we can generate the revenue, and it would be a pass-through. It would just have to be logistically, how does that work? And I'm not trying to put more burden on anyone's plate. I'm just trying to solve a problem. And I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, but I'd like to see us explore that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this may apparently need a lot more discussion, whether we're going to have it here at this meeting or not, but we'll have a comment here from Sherry first, then over to Counselor Beyondich, and then if we're going to continue to move this, I'd like to recess this particular issue and get item 11 and 12 out of here so our people can get back to work and we can get back to this topic if we deem the members to do so. So first, Sherry, any comments with respect to this?
When considering what Councilor Paulson is asking about, you're going to have to also take in consideration, we are paying $2,400 a month for the fitness equipment alone. That's a lease. Plus, once those wear out, we have to replace that. So you have to figure in at least just the equipment alone is $2,400 a month. I don't know
More
what.
more memberships you have offsets.
How many do we have now as memberships?
Brian?
192 is our current number. Between the monthly payment for the fitness equipment and the staff cost for the staff that sits at the desk, we figured out that we want to average, I believe it was 220 or 250 members per month, and our goal is to hit that number by January. So we are well on track to hitting that goal of paying the fitness center staffing and equipment lease with memberships.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich, and then we'll take we'll do 11 and 12 and then take a break.
Thank you.
12 and 13.
I know the notice went out for all of us for the meeting. And I think it's important that we have a meeting with the council and the instructors because we're disjointed right now. We're very disjointed. We don't know what the instructors, we need a conversation with them. And at our meetings that we have had, the first meeting, we had 2 instructors. The second meeting, we had 1.
Also does Connie.
Okay. So when we talk about a lot more information, we have to know how many people are we serving?